So I should be here solely by myself, which is good. So I can get this thing all shared out to the right places, the right things, and see the right people. Let's see. Gotta love Facebook nowadays. Hey, welcome here, everybody. I know no one's coming in to watch just yet, but hey, as you come, we'll get ready to enjoy a great interview. Got Mr. Rob Campbell on. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Why? Because, well, he's a great guy and he knows a lot of good stuff. And we're going to be talking, transition like we do. So hold on tight. It's going to be a fun time. But give me a second, because as y'all know, I like to use Be Live TV, but this time I'm using Zoom, and instead of doing stuff during the middle, I'm going to share it out right now so I can get it all moving in the right direction, and then we'll be good to go. And I'll bring in Rob and we'll start talking about wonderful things, right? How's everybody doing tonight? Good. So Rob will know when he gets here that we can actually see people making comments and saying hello. And so if there's any question that you may have, you can definitely ask him, and we'll ask the question and see. But if I don't like the question, I'm not going to ask him, because I don't want anybody being put on the spot here. And that's a joke. We'll make it all work. All right. So without further ado, let me get started here. What's going on, Johnny Roger, Mr. Jarrell? How are we doing? Okay. So let me do something here. I apologize for my lack of technical expertise, but it's okay. We're going to be just fine. All right. So here we are. Mr. Rob Campbell, welcome to On the Other Side, Leadership After Transition. How you doing tonight?
I'm great, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. It's awesome. It's always good as we start moving through this process and the transition process. And it's really interesting as this show has grown a little bit. It's good to have these LinkedIn connections, right? And you see people in your same space, reach out to me, I reach out to you, whatever the case may be. And you find that there's so much in common. And although we've never even seen each other, and we've served in different times and different places, and
Yep.
it's just a really interesting, I guess, great community, right? And it's good. So I appreciate that opportunity for you, for me to have a conversation with you on the phone a few weeks back. And more importantly, I'm thankful that you're here with me today.
Awesome.
So as we get started, I want to ask, so the group of folks that are listening, as they come in, they may ask some questions or whatnot. And if they do, and I say, if the question is good, right, I'll ask it. If it's something about like, I don't know, if it's worth in regard to transition, I'll definitely put it out there. But we'll go from there. But anyway, do me a favor, Rob. I want you to just tell me a little bit about your history in the military. Give me a little bit of background about who Rob Campbell is before you came in, where you're from. And as a matter of fact, let me time out for a second, because I forgot the most important question of all. Where are you calling from today? Where are you sitting at right now?
I'm in Surf City, North Carolina, about 244 steps from the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, that's a horrible place to be, I bet.
It's awesome.
No, it's great. Good. So now I guess here we can actually get involved in the show, right? So we can talk about Rob Campbell as a kid, or where you grew up at, and then kind of what made you want to join the Army, and then go from there.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm a Massachusetts native, or a masshole, as I call myself. Yeah, I grew up there, born and raised, and spent my entire childhood there. Was a basketball fanatic. Had zero desires to join the Army. I'd have laughed at you in high school if you'd asked me if I was going to be a career officer. But so I got into college. I went to school out in Western Mass, and I was broke, needed beer money. So there was the National Guard staring at me, right? My dad was a reservist. I was like, all right, I can do this. So I signed up, went to basic training, and lo and behold, I found something I loved. Joined the infantry, did some guard time in college. When I graduated, I went on active duty, and never had a desire to make it a career, really a vision to make it a career, but wound up doing that. Infantry officer, did Ranger, Airborne, Air Assault, all the crazy stuff, and commanded at several levels, culminating with brigade command in the 101st Airborne Division. Served time in the 82nd, out in the 25th. Primarily a light infantry guy, rucksack on my back, walking the path. did all that, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, had all was there during all the 9/11 and the post 9/11 era. Commanded a brigade in the 101st, did a little bit of time in Colorado. And then my wife and I decided, okay, our path is starting to diverge from the Army, and let's move on to, the next journey. Got 2 kids. One, the youngest is in college up in Asheville, UNC Asheville, and the other one's out Utah doing his thing. He's on his own now. And so the wife and I are semi-empty nesters.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the story. I retired in 2016, and I know we'll talk a little bit about the, post-Army period, but that's kind of the Rob Campbell journey, just, doing my best in the Army and climbing the ladder like everybody else, and just amazed at what the Army allowed me to do and the commands that it gave me. It's incredible stuff. We were in places like Alaska, Hawaii, Germany, neat places.
It was awesome. So it's really interesting. Well, 2 things are really interesting. One, I like the fact that you called yourself a mass hole, right? And I like it because if you look over my left shoulder, right, and you see that, I prominently display that in every interview I do. I got the love of the Army, and I enjoyed it more than anything possible in this world, except for the Yankees, right? So I have my family here, the Yankees here, and the Army. It's part of that's life for me anyhow. So that's great. The interesting thing, you say you're empty nesters. Well, I just had a baby a month ago or so. She's 4 weeks old, right? And
wow.
When I decided to exit the military, believe you me, the last thing I thought of doing was expanding my family. I was trying to do some other things, but it's a blessing. It's great. Well, so I liked what you said. The Army allowed you to do, right? And I often use that when I have conversations when people ask, right? So
yeah.
I tell anybody that asks me, I gave the Army time. That's what I gave them. I gave them 20 years of my life, and
right.
maybe that's a great thing or maybe a bad thing, whatever the case may be. For me, I loved it, but the Army gave me opportunity. They gave me reason. They gave me just a lot of stuff, and it's too much to even account for. But it's really, I don't want to say it's who I am, but man, it's just a wonderful blessing to have served with some of the greatest people in this world. And been taught how to be a man, I guess you'd say, and be responsible and accountable for my own actions, right?
I do it all over again. Command Sergeant Major Johnny Austin, I served with out in Fort Lewis, Washington years ago before 9/11. And he retired out there. And one of the things he said that always stuck with me in his retirement was that the Army was an opportunity of a lifetime for a lifetime of opportunity. And he nailed it. In my retirement speech, I used that same line.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, I think it's a great, that's very profound. So you retired in 16. Now, let me ask you a question, because before we actually get into the process, the retirement process, the transition process, and all the great things that came along with it, there was a point in your life where you decided, were you a brigade commander at the time you decided to retire?
No. I was not. It was, it was on my mind. I'd be lying if to tell you if it wasn't. Certainly my wife and I had considered it, but it wasn't in my DNA to stop something, or I'll never use the quit word because it's just not my DNA, but to stop and transition and move on to something else. It was always about serving the institution and staying at it until they told me that they were done with me. No, it wasn't then. It was afterwards when we got to the joint assignment up in Colorado, where things slowed down for us and we were able to catch our breath and really connect and start talking about it deeply. Yeah.
That's good. So for me, much different situation. I mean, I wasn't forced into it. I actually took a weekend to decide, but the weekend was, I do that with really big decisions. On Friday, I'll write down some pros and cons for an hour, get some rest or whatever. Saturday, I'll come back for another hour and do the same. Sunday, I'll do the same. Monday, I make a decision 100% in that direction because I don't like to live with regret. Right. So it was the right decision. I mean, there was just, I don't regret a single thing of it. And people ask all the time, well, don't you miss it because you were I couldn't believe you got out, things like that. And, I miss jumping out of an airplane. I miss the process to jump out of an airplane. I mean, so much to leaving the aircraft probably wasn't the greatest. Maybe the part between leaving and landing was always great, but no, I always loved it. You can have 20 people in an airplane get down and you have 20 different stories about how crazy the jump was, no matter what jump it was. But that's what I missed about the military. But for the most part, the decision was there. We made a great decision, and my family and I are very, very excited. And the transition process probably wasn't so nerve-wracking to me, probably because I thought I was prepared, and maybe that's why I wasn't nerve-wracking, because I thought I was ready, right? And then things kind of changed a little bit, right? But so let me ask you, so as you decided, you made that choice to go,
Yep.
start to get into the before the day of retirement.
Yep.
Tell me about the transition from decision to get out until actual exit of the military. Tell me kind of what the emotion was, because people don't talk about the psychology of it all, but also just the process in and of itself for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm writing about this in my second book. I haven't titled it yet, but it's about the transition for a senior service member, because I didn't have a lot to fall in on, a draw from, or a book to pick up and kind of read about how do you do this. You know, when serving is in your DNA and you've done so long in the military, a little easier for somebody that's done 5 years. You can transition back into civilian world a little easier because you haven't left it for that long. But I felt like I was extracted from the planet in 1990 and then placed back on it in 2016.
Right.
So it was fall of 15. My wife and I really had a chance to sit down and talk through this. And again, it wasn't automatic for me. I couldn't do it in a weekend. I admire you for being able to get through that. But I really had to listen to my inner voice and my gut telling me that, yeah, the future is not what I want. Wasn't bitter divorce. I love every day in the Army. I'd go back, you know, I'd do it all over again in a second. But it was just about, you know, so that I had commanded a brigade. Last time I was ever going to serve in a brigade. And this was about facing a potential promotion to general officer. Not automatic, very competitive, obviously, but a different lifestyle and a different path that the Army wanted me to travel, which I just didn't want to. It was what my wife and I decided, that's not what we want. But I really had to pull that inner voice out, my gut out, and say, yeah, this is not what you want to do. So be true and honest to that. And what I found, and one of the things I write about, is I had to kind of reverse the Army values a little bit, you know, instead of selflessness, which is, you know, it's me to my core. I had to become selfish to an extent. That didn't mean I turned my back on the mission and my unit, my people, but I had to kind of put a priority on me over the unit, more so than I ever had before, because in a very short time, you know, about 8 months, I was done forever. I was leaving forever. And that was a huge thing.
Right.
Transition. So, made the decision. And, you know, like you, Jeffrey, I mean, you know, you served a long time and you've made a lot of decisions in your military career, many of which had lives at stake. So did I. And so one of my mentors told me when I kind of, you know, presented the decision to him that, listen, you've made a lot of decisions and you made some really tough ones. You probably got this one right. You know, that you've kind of gone through a methodology to decide, yeah, this is the right move. It's not emotional. You strip all that away and you really get to something real. So made that call. And then, you know, I found myself somewhat unprepared once the call was made and the Army said, okay, we'll let you go. Okay, now what? I mean, I never really thought through. You know, aside from a rigid transition process, which I had confidence in, go to this appointment, do this. Yeah, I figured I'd get through that. It was like, all right, well, how do I do this now? What do I do? Where do I go afterwards? And how do I, you know, what do I work? So it was really a discovery in terms of how to network, how to get on social networks and do the things I had just never done before. But, you know, I like learning. And so I started talking to a lot of people that had been through it before I had. And learned quite a bit from them as I got close to the transition. And then I gobbled up everything the military threw at me in the transition process. You know, if it was a class out there and it was free and I could take it, then why not? I'd go sign up, boots to business and, you know, afterburner and all those things. And not all of them were great. Some of them were very good, but it was just, you know, informing me in the process as I went through it.
So I'm going to take a time out for a moment just to kind of talk about some things that we're going to talk about later, but I kind of want to put it out now. So our listeners that are here, one thing. So we got Rob Campbell, 27-year Army veteran, retired colonel. He founder of Investing in People Consulting and Coaching LLC. And we'll talk about how that formed, author of It's Personal, Not Personnel, Leadership Lessons for the Battlefield and the Boardroom. There is a second book coming, and we'll talk about that here shortly, which is a guide kind of for senior leaders as they make that transition. The thing that he's a business owner, he's an author, he's a speaker. If you didn't know, that's kind of what we do, right? I'm in the same exact boat now. What I would tell you is maybe like throwing out a little thing out there. So I'm not an author today. 1 November, I will be an author, and it's really interesting. The process of writing a book is especially if you would have asked me a year and a half ago, would I have ever been an author? Anybody that would ask you or answer that question to you would say, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't read it. But anyway, I've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into it, and I'm really excited. But anyhow, so that's Rob Campbell in a nutshell for all you that are currently watching. Now, real quick, Rob, if someone wanted to reach out, connect with you, whether it be through LinkedIn or social media or email, what give me some points of contact for them.
Yeah. Best way is my website, robcampbellleadership.com. That's got all of my contact info on there. You can connect and find my email, which is rob@robcampbellleadership.com. And I am very heavily in LinkedIn. So if you look for Robert Campbell and leadership, and you'll see my ugly mug on there, and I'm on there often, and it's a good place to connect me. That's a primary place to go.
Yep. And I'll tell you, I'm just going to kind of expound on that LinkedIn if we should work for LinkedIn, we should actually get paid for LinkedIn. Yeah. If you ever watch any of my shows, any interview I ever do, I speak so heavily on LinkedIn, highly about LinkedIn, because it's become such a great place to truly network, to do business, to gain business, to look for employment, and to get hired. I mean, it's not Facebook. And I try to make those connections on LinkedIn truly matter to me, because I want my network to not just be there. I don't like my Facebook friends. I might have 1,300 or 1,400 or 2,000. I don't even know the number, but I don't talk to all of them all the time. I might see something they post, but on LinkedIn, I truly want that network to work for me, and I want to work for that network. So LinkedIn is such a huge tool. And if you don't have it, jump on it. For anybody watching, and if you need help with setting up LinkedIn, man, there's so many different avenues to go to find free resources for military, and hell, you can call me. I'm sure you can call Rob. And if you do look at Rob's LinkedIn stuff, it's perfect. It's just very informative. Look at how he's done it, especially for you senior leaders, right? I'm kind of throwing you in there for a second, Rob, but the senior leaders out there, look at Rob's LinkedIn profile. Look at how he broke down his positions in the military, because it has his military position, but his civilian, the commensurate rank or commensurate position, right? So it translates perfectly. And then you look at the job, duty description, all that stuff, and you just did a fabulous job in doing that. So you definitely need to have someone do that for you if you don't know how to do it yourself. But that's a great tool thing to have, and you did great with it. So, all right. So now we talked up to getting back to the regular scheduled programming, right? So we talked to your transition, the portion where you made some decisions. Sure. You went through it. And I liked how you said that you admire the weekend thing, right? It wasn't solely a weekend. Believe me, the thought was going around for a little bit of, do I stay or do I go? Yeah. But it really just took me one solid weekend, because I don't like to wait, because I really feel as though I think just like your buddy told you, your mentor, when you make a decision, or even if it pops in your mind, because there's a gut feeling. And sometimes the emotion part plays into those feelings. But once you remove it, and you look at it and you peel back the why, it's probably still the right decision. It usually works. You don't kind of counter your own self, right? In normal times. So anyhow. Yep. So you go through the transition process. You go through your schooling, the classes. I love the fact that you said what you did. And I'm going to tell you, Rob, so many senior officers do what you did. And what I mean by that is they take advantage of the resources that are available. And it's almost as though the same things you did to become a colonel, to become a lieutenant colonel, to become a senior officer, you're doing outside of your uniform. And you're doing that in the same direction, just in the civilian life, right? Yeah. I get a little frustrated when I see junior enlisted soldiers, senior enlisted soldiers that aren't taking advantage of all of the free resources, whether it's from the University of Syracuse or whatever, maybe boots to business, all these different programs, Veterati, ACP, just different organizations that exist for free. And it's perfect, the networking thing. So I'm glad you actually took advantage of that. And I really wish that we'd get a lot more people doing those same exact things, because they're free and they're very helpful. So good on you. So you get to the point where it's the last day, you're doing some stuff. How did you look for employment when you're going out and talking to folks and just doing different things, taking advantage of some of the programs that are offered to you? What did you think about from an employment perspective? What are you going to do for work?
Yeah. Great question. Because I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Actually, I really started, and your point on LinkedIn is valid. I mean, that's step one. Once you decide to transition, get on LinkedIn and get busy. I have a 15,000 plus network on LinkedIn. It's huge. I mean,
Mhm.
when I post something, thousands of people see it. So
Mhm.
it's everything, especially in my business of speaking and consulting and coaching. Um, yeah, I started down the kind of the corporate path. I envisioned myself not specifically in an industry, and that was a challenge for me because I always got that question, what industry you want to be in? I really don't care. As long as I can get a team around me and drive it to excellence and contribute something,
Mhm.
it can be anything. Well, that can be troublesome. I mean, you want to kind of narrow yourself down a little bit. So I started going down that road, started doing some heavy networking and talking to a lot of people. I didn't close any doors and say, no, I'm not going to live here, or I'm not going to go do that, or I won't work for this. I knew that I wanted to kind of get into the private sector more, not, go back to the defense industry or be a Department of the Army or a civilian. I wanted to kind of get out there and see something new. But then as I thought about it and I got forward, I went to it. I mean, guys, like you and I have already worked a lifetime. I mean, 27 years, 3 deployments, and all that went with that. It was just crazy. And I could just envision an organization squeezing the juice out of me. And here I go again, 70-hour weeks, traveling all the time, not seeing my family. And it's not what I wanted to do at the age of 50. It was something different. And so um, I decided to take some time. That really was the decision, I guess, to say, okay, let me just take my terminal leave.
Mhm.
My wife's going to work for a year and help us through the transition. It'll give me some chance to put this behind me
Mhm.
and reflect and think about what it is I want to do next. And that's when the book idea came up and the consulting idea came up and all that. So it started heavy in terms of job search, but then it kind of came to a screeching halt. And now I continue to network because I knew I needed to build that network regardless of what I was going to do. But kind of decided, yeah, I think I'm going to search a lifestyle versus a paycheck.
That's outstanding. And I gotta, this is only an assumption, right? So please don't get angry with me for making an assumption. I think that there's some things that you learn in the time in your military and within your service. And I think officers do a great job at this. Enlisted folks, I think they're getting better in the 2010 era as they're starting to move forward. But it's understanding money, right? And I
Yeah.
think that officers have done a good job from being young to through. And sometimes they go out and they get crazy and spend money on cars and stuff and homes, but for the most part, they're intelligent enough to invest and to put away and to set aside. And so when retirement does come, whether it be at the '05 level, the '06 level, there's a savings of some sort, there's investments of some sort, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of breathe. I
Yeah.
mean, where you're if the day the paycheck stops and the retirement comes in and it's a much smaller than what you're used to, you still have something to where you can breathe
Yes.
and actually not put yourself in a bad situation where a lot of enlisted folks, senior, junior, it doesn't matter, where they're not so educated with the money and they're not so good with savings because they have a brand new 2018 whatever car you put it in there, and they don't do so many things wise with money. Now they're forced to jump into a situation, whatever that situation is. They're forced to do it because they need that income,
Yeah.
and therefore, because you were able to kind of sit back and make a decision, you had that freedom, a little bit of that financial
Sure.
buffer, if you will, which is hugely intelligent and
Yeah.
very needed. And I wish more people would actually get onto the financial portion of that. But anyway, so when you decided to start the consulting, right? It's investing in people and consult. When did that open? How did that actually come to reality, fruition? When did that
Yeah.
happen?
Well, I knew my passion was leadership and people-centric leadership and focusing on people and organizations. And the book idea really, I've always had a passion for writing. I kind of started off with a few articles and did some small level stuff, but nothing really bit. And I went to a conference, just like a networking thing, in January of 17, and I met a guy there that had written a book in 100 days, and he was just this machine. I'm like, and I've been surrounded by terrorists, but this guy's fearless, and I just like, I was amazed by what he did. Like, I could do that. And
Mhm.
so I went back and, in February, I kind of sketched out an outline. I said, okay, I got a book here. I can do this. And so that was kind of the start point. I didn't necessarily have the LLC in mind at that
Mhm.
point, but as I got to write in the book, I was like, hey, this is a big business card and I can teach and consult and speak just off of this book and this story that I'm telling.
Mhm.
So that's when I kind of started. And so I think it was like, spring, summer, I got the LLC up and running and started to do some heavy networking, but I didn't have the book complete and on the street yet. And so I was lacking a little bit, but aside from my, military resume. Started doing some networking in Wilmington, North Carolina down the road. And so that's kind of where it started. I mean, the LLC was kind of easy. The name is horrible. It's too long. Kind of like the Rob Campbell leadership, that's good enough. Find me on the web that way. And there you have it. So yeah, I just started off slow and kind of creeped along a little bit, and really didn't get my first client until December of 17. So it took a while.
Yeah. And that's, so just so you're tracking, I being in the business that I am, and it's very similar. It's not, I wouldn't call myself much of a consultant, but as far as a coach of sorts, and I do understand the timing, and what I really admire about people that kind of step out there. I think military folks, veterans of any, I don't want to say of any length of service, but some type of service, and 5 years is good, whatever the case may be. Business ownership is not not something in which I think that veterans should shy away from. You kind of have a lot of things within you that can push you through a lot of the hard times.
Yeah.
But business sucks, right? So the business aspect of business, a lot of people don't understand that, but if you can get out there, if your intent is to speak, and speaking is not the business. Speaking is what's the fun part. That's the part where you get to go out and speak. But the marketing, the hustling, the networking, the budgeting, all that stuff. That's the not so fun stuff. And I try to talk to people all the time when they decide to open a business. I say, listen, find somebody that's good at the things that you're not. I mean, if you don't have the capital to invest in a huge staff, then I get it. That's where you're a solopreneur and you're doing things by yourself because that's what you're forced to do. But if you have the ability to put some money into people that can do the things that you don't know how to do, you can learn through time. But if you want to get this business up and going, you got to be making money, and it's not so simple when you're not really a business savvy guy. But definitely a steep learning curve, but a great adventure. I'm telling you, that's probably the most enjoyable part of the business aspect of things, is just everyday new ideas. Every day, I mean, you can't obviously put them all into play, but you're like, maybe this will work or maybe not. But anyhow, as we go forward, and just so you know, I don't think investing in people, consulting and coaching is a bad thing, because it leaves no question to what you're doing. And I think that it's good. I mean, it's not Nike or Reebok, but that's years of time and time. So I like the title actually, but let's kind of move into it. I mean, staying in the same realm of the business, I just kind of want to ask, as you got your first client and you used your book as a marketing tool, because I liked how you said it was like a big business card. What is your, I guess, the feedback you've received from your book itself? How does that, just tell me what you're getting back from people that actually served in the military, that have read your book, that say, what do they say about it, to tell you where from the battlefield, or leadership for the battlefield and into the boardroom? Kind of give me back what people are telling you about it.
I'm getting good feedback. A lot of guys look at it and say, man, I wish I had this before I took charge of, an organization and troops. And my answer back, yeah, me too. I mean, I never thought about leadership in that depth. And until I really wrote the books, I did some research and a lot of reflection in terms of what I thought about it. So I get a lot of that. I do get a lot of people that appreciate having it close at hand. It's almost like a piece of Rob Campbell on your desktop, where, you're sitting there, you get ready to counsel somebody, or you want to do some introspection, or, you're just trying to really get people focused, but you don't quite know how. All right, we'll flip the chapter, whatever, and read through that, and then tab that and highlight it and put it back down. So that's the value I believe the book brings. And it's just fun to talk about it when I get into organizations. The one thing that the military did for me is, I served in 21 different organizations. Like you moved often. And so I have this skill that I can walk into an organization, look around real fast, talk to a few people, sniff, touch, smell, and know very quickly what's wrong. What's not functioning well. Certainly need to dig a little bit more, but I have that talent to be able to do that. And I can do that in organizations nowadays where they're kind of amazed. What, you only talked to me for a couple hours, but you nailed it. Yeah, of course. I mean, for 27 years, it's not like I'm smart, but I have that experience. And so that's what it does for me. But yeah, the book is, it's getting a lot of good reviews and it's very helpful. I've had one guy, which I spoke to in an energy company in Texas, said, he doesn't read books, but he read this one twice because it really spoke to him. And It's fun that way to kind of get that feedback and see, but it seems to be helping some folks out there.
That's awesome. And I think that's one of the the best things. And that's kind of why I do this. And I know that's kind of why you're still in the space you're in. It's
Yep.
really interesting because even when you said it, which by the way made sense, turning the selfless to selfish, but you have to be in that aspect of life when you're starting to, because the Army's not going to concern themselves too much with you when you leave.
Nope.
And it's not because they don't love you. It's just because they got other people that are going to move the Army forward. Right. So you
Yep.
do have to move into that selfishness because it's going to be you and your family, taking care of you and your family from that point
Right.
forward. But, doing what you're doing now is still serving, right? And I think that because you have that in your DNA, like you had made mention, the ability for someone to have this on their desk, and whether they're a colonel, a lieutenant colonel, a captain, and hell, I would tell you, I'd venture to say that young NCOs should use this book. And it's not to, obviously it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be a brigade or it doesn't have to be a battalion in which they're leading. It's about people, right? It's leading people. And that's important. And at whatever level you're at, it's still important to be very focused on who it is that we're leading, right?
Yep.
Good deal. So as we I want to ask you a couple more questions real quick, just in regards to leadership in general, right? So leaders have good qualities, right? And you can go through a million of them, and you can say that these qualities make up a great leader. What qualities do you look for while you were in the military, and does that translate into the civilian world and being of those same qualities?
Yeah, it absolutely does. If I had to narrow it down to one word, it's humility. That to me means that that leader, if that leader is humble, he or she is going to really deeply appreciate the position that they hold. They're not going to let their ego flare up. They're going to listen to people. They're not thinking that, they're the smartest one, the most important one in the room. I think humility does a lot for a leader, but what I'm looking for is certainly that transparency, someone that's not afraid to kind of, be transparent and open up a little bit about who they are. I do that in chapter 5 of the book. And I think, just the human connection, the personal connection side of it, and being interested in people. I'm genuinely interested in people. And I think that has helped me be a good leader, because I didn't come across a single soldier where I didn't want to know what their story was.
Right.
And what they might be struggling with and what I could do to make them better and help them achieve the next level they were at. So that's what I look for in leaders. It really starts with humility and transparency. Those are key for me, that leaders know themselves and they're not so caught up in their ego to listen to people and do it right.
That's an amazing thing. So just so you know, I typically say transparency. So we got a word that we use. I think that's huge. I mean, it just allows for so much. I mean, especially as a leader, because if you're transparent, there's no surprise, and you see what you get. I mean, that's important. What I find to be interesting is I've spoke to leaders throughout my career. I've followed many leaders, and I've got out of the military and talked to former leaders and veterans that are leaders. And the one thing that I listen to when someone comes out, and whether it's a colonel or a sergeant major or a sergeant first class or a gunnery sergeant, doesn't matter what service that level of leadership that they held. It's really interesting to me, because a lot of times if they don't know me, I won't tell them I served. I'll just listen to some stories. Then we'll talk. And after I say, hey, well, I was in the Army too, and this is what I did, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the fact that there's a very open blanket about leadership and a conversation about leadership. A lot of veterans talk leadership because they were leaders of people, right? Yep. And I think that the military makes leaders. I do, but I also argue the fact that not everybody that was ever a leader in the military is a truly, genuinely good leader. I mean, it's up for conversation, right? Because in the military, there's a structure, and you're forced into following the leader. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Sure. Yep.
But when you have service members that follow the leader because they want to, that's when you start to say, okay, that guy right there, I want to be just like him. And those qualities in which you just mentioned, the transparency, the humility, those things. And you actually nailed it on the head when you said, excuse me, that excuse me, I apologize. I almost fell off my chair. That was kind of comical because I'm stationary, right? But I was kind of getting excited. But but now I forgot what I was going to say because I was about to fall. You had said transparency, humility, and then you had made mention of something else, and I now forgot it, which is ridiculous. What else did you said something?
Yeah, it was really a transparent humility and
genuine
people. Being genuine, authentic,
and that to me, when I just like, I generally like people. I am interested in people, and because I don't understand where everybody comes from. And I want to understand respect means something in New York that means something different in Massachusetts, which means something different in Florida. And I want to understand what it is to them. And I genuinely care. It's kind of like saying, how are you? But you really don't want someone to answer how they are. You just start saying it, say hi. And then but me, if you ask me how I am, well, I'm going to tell you, and you cannot leave until I'm done. I mean, it's just the way I want to talk. And when I ask how you are, I really want you to tell me. I'm genuinely concerned. And I think that it can be annoying in times. I know people get frustrated with me, but at the end of the day, what I do know for certain is that I know that they know I care about how they truly are. And to me, it's important. And so I look for those same things in a leader for certain. Certain. That's awesome. So if you had the ability to talk, well, you have an ability right now to talk to transitioning people because they're watching us, right? If you had the ability to tell a transitioning service member anything, some form of advice that you just think is so paramount that they have to have it, what would that be?
It would be this, passion over paycheck. I think too often we see a dollar sign and we run towards it, and we may not be chasing something that's authentic and fits us. I mean, in the military, it's predictable and you kind of know what you're going to get. Sure, you don't know where you're going to live next year or the next couple of years, but you know that you're going to follow kind of a rigid path. You know what's going to be expected out of you. And I would hope, for those of us that chose it as a career, that we found a passion because we enjoyed what we did and we stayed. It wasn't just about chasing a retirement check. Well, that applies on the outside as well. What are you going to do on the outside? What is it you're going to follow? And that's key, I think, is understanding what your passion is. One of the best questions I was asked in my transition was, Rob, if you could wake up tomorrow and do anything and money wasn't an issue, money was not a factor. It just didn't exist. You were going to you'd have a roof over your head, you could eat and all that and do anything you wanted to. What would that be? And that really gets to what you're truly passionate about. Now, I love adventure motorcycling, and it's been a lot of fun to me. Now, would I do that every day of my life? No, maybe not. But I know I'd be certainly charged up if I were able to get up and go speak somewhere and make a difference in the lives of others, which is my core purpose. Yeah. That would give me energy in the morning and allow me to lay down at night fulfilled. Mm-hmm. If I could do that, that'd be fantastic. One of mine is maybe go back to school. I love learning. Mm-hmm. Right now, that doesn't pay. You obviously have to pay for it. So there's a factor that comes in like paychecks and reality and things like that. But you've got to be aware of your passion and not just speed towards, a dollar sign. Because I think what happens, certainly what I've seen with some senior officers, is that's what they do. And then they find that they're unhappy and unfulfilled in the post-military life. And that unhappiness comes home and it's rough on their marriages and them. And it's just hard. So you really got to be true to that passion to find out what it is you can do on the outside.
Excellent. I had a passion for fishing and I don't know how to do it. So I go out there and cast for like hours on end, don't catch anything. And I just have to go to work because my family would die. We would not eat, but anyhow, no, that's awesome. I really, I kind of want to talk I'm really still interested in just your passion, the fact that you like to speak and empower people and to make them, change their lives. When I decided to retire, there was plenty of things, right? It wasn't just, I want to do this, so I'm going to get out, or I'm sick of this. My body's broke, my family's here. There's just a lot of things. There was a million things, but the one thing that I truly honed on, and I knew, I opened my business, my retirement ceremony was April 28th of 2017. My business officially opened on April 28th of 2017. I actually got the LLC approved the morning of, which was great. But I knew I wanted to influence people, right? And in the military, it's funny because someone said, well, the Army makes you, when you're this rank or this person, you can only do it based on what the Army values are. Well, I don't think that's a bad idea. It's not like my values changed because I left the Army. The values that I had in the Army are pretty good to live by, right? So, but the difference is when I'm able to influence this, the sphere is this big. My sphere of influence is this big. Out here, I'm able to go anywhere. I can truly talk to anybody. It's really just, is up in the air. I mean, who do I want to talk to? Who wants to listen? And more importantly, I think that, talking to military folks and trying to inspire them to be, I loved it. I mean, I was able to do it in uniform. And now that I'm not, it's not that I don't want to inspire them to be, but what skills and leadership things that I hold do they not hold? And it's very, right. I mean, nice to go talk to a 2-year E3, E4, even a 5-year captain or a lieutenant. It's nice because they still listen and they want to know, but you're not going to talk to senior leaders. I mean, they might have a question for you and you might answer them, but at the end of the day, they are senior leaders and they kind of went to the same schooling. They kind of have the same position. So, but it's nice to go out here where you are needed. There's a lot of folks out here that have no military background, no knowledge of that, and lacking this type of figure in their life or this type of person to tell them about this. And well, I love the fact that I'm able to walk there and change their life. And it's just amazing feeling. So that's awesome. So I got one more question for you. We're not going to end the show. I'm just not ready yet because I just really want to hear more from you. I've been talking more than you are, and this is supposed to be your interview. I got to be quiet, but I want to ask you to tell me a story. And usually that's the last thing that I ask is for someone to tell me that you can't make this up story. I'm going to have you give me that story, but then I'm going to ask you one final question. But if you could go back in your 27-year career, there's got to be something that sticks out. Now, I don't want to get you in trouble. So just make sure that, but tell me something that someone that never served before would not believe happened while you were in the military.
Yeah. It was when I was a brand new lieutenant, a perfect scenario. So, I just arrived in my unit, been in the Army all week, fresh, green as can be. And my battalion commander wanted to bring me in for my efficiency report counseling. And he did. I went in his office and had a great conversation. Rob, you and your wife, Leslie, are great, members of the team here. We're so happy to have you. You're off to a great start as a lieutenant. Blah, blah. It's just going really, really well, right? So I stood up to leave when it was finished and went to salute. Well, his office was kind of small. So when my hand came down, my big, long, lanky basketball arms, I hit his wooden nameplate on his desk. And it came flying off and broke into 3 pieces right in front of me. And he was as stunned as I was and muttered something to the effect of, yeah, my wife made that for me. So I readily left his office and went and found my company commander, told him, and he doubled over in laughter. That story, and it stuck with me for quite a many years. I saw my career flash before me before it had even started.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So you got a question. I got a question for you. So Rob Allen, Sergeant Major Rob Allen, he was at Bragg. I think you served with him at Bragg, actually, at some point. But he asked, what advice would you give those who have been a servant leader for 20 plus years and transitioning from using the terms we, team, et cetera, to the selfish me, I, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a tough question, and I don't know that I have an easy fit. I'm writing about it in my second book because I'm approaching, or I'm really at the 2-year mark since I have transitioned, and it's a roller coaster of emotions. There's resentment, there's jealousy, there's amazement, when I see some of these young kids and doing what they do. And I come home often and I talk to my wife about the selfishness I just experienced with somebody in an organization. I just can't believe, what I'm seeing and hearing. I don't have an easy answer to say, hey, do this or, use this or take this pill. But I will say this, our society is so small. You could fit the entire Department of Defense in the city of San Jose, for example. That's how small the military is. It's 0.4% of the nation. And I think in many ways, it's us that need to assimilate back to society and not the other way around. And I think sometimes we have to swallow some of the things that we see and be cautious of where we put ourselves. I signed on with an organization that lasted a week. There was a failure in character, and there's things that Sergeant Major is talking about that we just can't. It's a red line for me. I won't be in an organization like that.
Right.
Where I go in and coach and consult, I make it very clear up front. Listen, if there's some illegal stuff going on here, or you're not going to sign on for caring for your people and doing the things that we did and what I'm subscribing to you, then I'm out. I don't want any part of it. And the good thing is there are organizations and there are people out there. And I think that's just where we got to find them, folks. And where you find those that are just looking for a dollar sign and it's all about them and it's just counter to what's in our DNA, then slip away, grab them risers and go in another direction and be cautious of it. But man, stay connected to the tribe, because I think conversations like this are helpful, because you and I are talking tonight about selfless service in many ways, around in a roundabout way. We're just talking about giving and investing in others and things like that. And these are conversations that we can have that we know. We don't have to explain it too much. In other circles, it would just be, what are you talking about? Giving and volunteering, and it's not about you, it's about the organization. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what you guys like you and I are trying to share with those on the outside. So yeah, be cautious, put some body armor on and watch out for those spaces out there, and just, let your ego down a little bit and say, okay, I get it, but this is the place I got to kind of be in. But have those red lines and stay true to them, and, never sign on with an organization that's completely counter. Find those sweet spots where people are living out values like we were raised with.
Yeah. It's really interesting you said that. I got to tell you, when I first got out, I needed a job, and I applied at a Ford dealership. As a matter of fact, Brandon Ford here in Tampa Bay, which, by the way, is the number one F-150 car dealership in the world, right? So I just want to throw it out there because I love them. When I got there, there was no expectation for me. I mean, I was very nervous to get a job to begin with, because I didn't know what that was like, right? It's the first job I've had in 20 plus years. Anyhow, when I got there, my expectations were, I'm just a guy. I'm no better than, and I don't care. And I'll tell you, I was treated with nothing but dignity, respect. There were people that never served a day in their life. There were people that were veterans in the organization, but they all was just very grateful to have me, and I was grateful to have them. And there was something that was very common though, and there was the relationship. I mean, the same camaraderie that I had. I mean, that was a really good place to be, was the dealership. But everybody had that same conversation. But obviously, productivity was very important. There are car sales. Place, they sell cars, and that's what you had to do. But just the people in general, just great. And last night, I actually had a great eye-opening conversation with some good folks. And the one thing that I got out of it that I put out to some people was, a lot of times we say us and them, and we talk in those terms for us, the veteran community, right, with a 0.4%, which is tiny, right? And them, meaning the civilian community. And a lot of times that's where you put that guard up, and you're very concerned about having them tell us what to do. And that, to me, it's a little bit selfish. It's a little bit entitled. To get that attitude, because here's what I told the folks we were talking to. I said, they've been in that world, the world in which we are now in, that we've embarked upon, right? They've been in it continuously for X amount of years. And whether that's the same amount of time you've been in the military or longer, they haven't changed. This is just their world.
Yep.
Go and listen and learn from them. And you got to be cautious. You got to be careful, because there are shiesty people in the world, but there's some really genuinely good people. And just like you said, Rob, you can see them like you when you first walk into places. You can understand what they're talking about. And if you're very open and you just look, you'll see. Not everybody's got a great heart, but you can kind of read people, and people genuinely want to help. So you start looking for what they're trying to help you do. Open your heart, open your ears, open your mind, and start to learn. And I'll tell you, it's just a great world out there. And there's just some really great people out there that never served a day in their life that want to help you succeed just because, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to love it.
One of the things I learned, a buddy of mine and I were talking, is that, we have this expectation. Like, I was the CEO of a 5,000 person organization, right? So I don't know a thing about pharmaceuticals, but I promise you, I could get on the road and be the CEO of the pharmaceutical company. And learn about pharmaceuticals fast enough, but lead and build teams and create vision and drive the organization. I know I could succeed, but I shouldn't expect to be able to walk into that organization and be put in that kind of position, because if you reverse that, we wouldn't allow someone to come into the military and become a sergeant major because he or she had a certain degree and had done a few things. Oh no, Buster, you got to prove yourself first before. So, we ought to consider that on the outside too, is that just don't think your rank and your resume are going to open some doors for you and make it automatic. It's certainly difficult because there is that, disconnect. They don't quite understand, what is a sergeant major? What's a brigade? What's that mean?
Right.
Struggle in it, and it's tough. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but think about it in terms of what they're doing. They want to see that you can do things. So when I consult and talk to people about businesses, I can't really talk much about payroll or or hiring and recruiting. The Army did that for me. I was lucky in that respect. I never had to worry about my budget failing. It was always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that way in a business. And so it's just a different lens you got to look through.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's so true. And I think that goes back into the little bit of swallow your pride, kind of like you said. And another thing, depending, I mean, if people want to go into the corporate world and it's great. It's different. It's time is different. Like, I think everything in the Army is a priority, meaning that we work in seconds and minutes, where in the regular world, they work in months and years. And it's like, hey, relax, chill out. It's still going to be there tomorrow. In the Army, it's over because tomorrow we got something else. Right. But the thing is, based on a lot of just the work ethic, I think, and a lot of the knowledge that is there, you can go in you could become the janitor of an organization. You could be the lowest person in the organization, and whatever that is.
Yep.
And after a very, very short time, you will be recognized and you will be moved, because it's just understood, as you start going. But you got to give that effort. The same effort that got you to where you were going.
Yep.
Or you got to where you were, will get you to where you're going. And I just think that some folks that lasted 27 years and did great things in the Army, sometimes they don't want to climb anymore, and I can understand that. And that's where a lot of people, when I'm talking about climbing, I'm talking about the corporate ladder, right? Mm-hmm. They climbing in a business to see it be successful, to leave a legacy for others to see, and to just do things like that. I think it's a great thing. But when you start putting yourself back into the business world and you want to get into the corporations and see where you fit, I don't think. Some people just don't want to take that 15 years walk again.
Sure.
And
I'm patient.
And it's understandable, but again, it goes back to what you even said. Find your passion. What do you want to do? And if climbing ladders is what you like to do, then by all means, get in there and do it, because there's nothing wrong with it as long as you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, you bet.
So I think they said the average first job after the military, 13 months. Is the length. It's like that you go through jobs. I mean, there's some people go through 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs within the first 8 months,
Yeah.
And some people to find that dream job from the moment they get out. I mean, it's really, everything's generalized, and you try to take averages and do that stuff. I mean, between officer exiting the military because he had his full amount of time, so he had to get out. So he wasn't so much ready, but he had to go. That's an emotion. That's a different emotion than someone that chooses. It's the time, and the same with sergeant's major. But there's an emotional feeling that you kind of go through those emotions, and it's time. And you had made mention one last thing, and now I'm going to let you speak to that because it's very important. You talked about going to different groups, networking events, and conferences, and different things, and you had made mention about having someone to talk to, like this conversation where you and I can talk. We never served a day in our lives together,
right.
But we can, there are so many things that are similar, and we can just relate to it. So we can have these conversations. Where do you find that when, especially when you first started going through that transition, where did you find the best places to go to find those like-minded individuals to have those conversations with?
Yeah. So there's really two parts to that. The first part I'll address is kind of what you're talking about is staying connected to the tribe. LinkedIn is a great place. I connect with veterans a lot, though I don't know who they are. I do that. I've gone down to like the veterans offices at the local campuses, UNCW and Cape Fear Community College, and they have those places down there just to go down and say hello and say, hey, I'm in town. Let's stay connected. If you haven't yet, if you're a transitioning veteran, read Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe, because it really talks about what it is we're going through. And I didn't connect to the tribe when I transitioned. I was looking for that break and that space. And I was like, okay, that's in my past. I'm going to move forward. But I have found towards the latter part of this 2-year period that I get a lot of value, and I guess it's healthy for me to connect with people that speak the same unspoken language, and conversations like this that we can have. And so I find veterans events and things like that I can connect to. I taught for a while at the Marine Corps University up the road in Camp Lejeune. And so that was nice to do. I enjoyed doing that. Just little places you could find. I'm a member of the Retired Officers Association down here. I'm a vice president of the AUSA sub-chapter at UNC Wilmington. Just great ways for me to kind of stay connected, but not have to break through the gates of a base and, be tapping somebody on the shoulder that I used to outrank. So I think it's healthy to stay connected to the tribe, but whether you do it virtually or you do it in person, to find those things that are going on around you. And if they're not there, create it. Create a social network like Port City Young Professionals, or in your city, a veterans network where everyone comes together, you drink beer, share stories. Yeah. The second part of that is what I've suggested to a lot of people is to find a mentor out there for something that's important to you. We talked about finances earlier, and I did start saving early in my career, but it's not something I really want to get into the weeds of, but I need a mentor to coach me through that. So I've had that. On the outside, now that I've transitioned, I don't need a mentor in leadership. I don't need a mentor on how to command. I don't need a mentor on how to parent or marriage or anything like that. What I need is mentors that never served. And so I've got two right now. One is Jim Hughes with theuntamedentrepreneur.com. That's his website. He's a Brit, and he's 35 years old. He's not married. He's got no kids, never served a day in uniform. But he helps me with the passion side of what I'm trying to do, my flow state, and staying true to what it is I want to do. Because as you know, it's tough. You got to be chasing clients and staying with it. It's not a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
So I connect with him often to get that and get me back on track and, help me steer. Another one is a friend of mine, Adam Burke, who's done very well in the business world. Again, has never served. But when it comes to what do I charge people? How do I, sell this to somebody?
Yeah.
How do I get into the business? He helps me do that. And those are great. And those are the people that I have found that I turn to. They're younger than me. They're less experienced, but I've let my ego down and say, okay, how do I do this? Because I just have no idea. And so I think it's staying connected to the tribe, finding out how you can do it, and then find yourself a new set of mentors for this post, military journey that you're on.
That's awesome. And I love it, because it goes back to almost something that I say regularly is I learn from everybody. I don't put a limitation. I don't put an age limit on who I can learn from. I don't put it like we can learn from everybody. And out here, it goes same in line with me saying, hey, go reach out to this guy who's been in this world much longer than we have. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we weren't stuck behind, we weren't in Shawshank, I mean, we were able to move around, but our connection to the civilian world and how that was working was not in line with what we did. So it's very important to get out there. I love that you look for people asking about price points. How do you charge someone? I mean, look, hey, look, you give me $100, I'm doing it thinking I'm doing the right thing. And then they're like, yeah, don't get that guy. He doesn't even know what he's doing. You know what I mean? But it's important. Well, look, I want to make sure I put it out there again. It's personal, not personnel. Leadership lessons from for the battlefield and the boardroom. That's the first book. The second book, titled Yet to Be Determined, but it's coming out soon. And as soon as it does, Rob, send it my way. I'll put it on my group. I'll push it out. I mean, just give me the links to where I can get it, because I'll tell you, I think those senior leaders out there, a lot of times they're more nervous than the junior guys, because the junior guys, especially the 3-year, 4-year guys, all they want to do is just get out. They don't care about TAPS. They don't care about Soldier for Life. They don't care about none of that stuff. They just want to escape the prison, right? Senior folks get a little bit more nervous because they don't know what's out there, and really nothing's really catered right now to them. They're making programs, they're doing things to help, but still that book I'm sure will be invaluable, and a lot of folks will want to see it. So make sure that you share it with me so I can get that link out there. Right. And again, give your email address or LinkedIn information so we can make sure people connect with you.
So the best place is the website, robcampbellleadership.com. That's got my LinkedIn and Facebook contacts on there. It's also got my phone number and email, which is rob@robcampbellleadership.com, 3 L's. And reach out. I get fulfillment by making a difference in the lives of others. And so if there's someone out there that needs help, I was talking to a guy earlier tonight that's in the job search and is having a hell of a time. I don't even know him, but he was a CW5. And so, I'm here for you.
That's awesome. Much appreciated. I love that about you. I think that's great. I get people call about jobs to me. Like I got to tell you, I was thinking, no joke, opening my own business to try to take a percentage of the salary that someone got because of the amount of people I try to put on jobs. But I got to be honest with you, like this podcast, there's no money involved. No. Like that, there's no money involved. If I can connect someone with an opportunity, I mean, I'm not going to get the job. You got to get the job. But if I can put you in touch with someone that possibly can do that, man, I don't care who you are. Call me, email me. Let's go. Because if you're employed, that's a good thing. That's what we're looking to do, right?
You bet.
One last thing for all of you watching, and please, share this. If you're watching, share it, because we want people to see Rob and get some good information. More importantly, Military Influencer Conference, September 25th and 26th in Orlando, Florida. If you're in this area and you don't have tickets, get tickets. The Military Influencer Conference, go on Google it and you'll be able to get tickets. There's not a lot left, so get out there, because that's a good opportunity if you're looking to be in the business world. There's a lot of military influencers, spouses. There's all kind of business to be made and connections to be made. Rob and I will shake hands for the first time. So that'll be a great thing, is to see him there. I'm looking forward to just meeting a lot of folks at that conference. But if you're interested, you can email me. I can give you some information. I can give you some a contact to where you can get a discount on the price. But just give me a holler and make sure you're there. If you want to be part of that group of folks, come on out. It's going to be a great time. I look forward to seeing you, Rob, there. I truly less than, we're 2 weeks away, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks away. I can't even do the math, but it's close.
Drop zone coming up.
That's it. Well, I look forward to seeing you. Anything else? I want to make sure that you have the opportunity. Right now, I'm going to give you the mic for as long as you want it. I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to say anything you want to say to the viewers of On the Other Side, Leadership After Transition.
No, we had some good discussion here tonight. And so, just chase a passion, stay true to that. And, think about the transition deliberately and stay true to your passion and be authentic, and, it'll work out. You'll find your way.
Outstanding. Well, it's all the time we have. Thank you, Rob, for coming on. I learned a lot, and it was just it's a great opportunity just to have a conversation. It was as if we weren't really talking to anybody else. I was glad that Rob Allen had a question, but it's just good to have the conversation. Truly, I got to learn a lot about you and about what you're going through. And I definitely take some notes so I can, help somebody else, because you actually put out a lot of information there. So I appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeffrey. See you in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. And for all of you out there, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate your time. See you next time on the other side.